Hey everyone, what's up guys? Sorry I couldn't make it to session 0, but I just sent my backstory to the DM and I think I'm gonna fit in really well with the rest of the party. Yeah, so about that, it kind of looks like you have a little bit too much gold for being a sailor from the Feywild who was also raised by giants. This backstory document is way longer than a page, dude. Come on. Oh yeah, so in my last campaign that I was in, we kind of did these cool custom backgrounds. And so I thought that I would slot the same character in just so that we could get to your campaign a little faster. You know, I'm just trying to speed things along for you because I know how much work being a DM is. And it looks like your starting equipment includes a sword that you have named Excalibur. Well, it is Excalibur, as in the Excalibur. Yeah. Okay. Also, my character had a ring of invisibility and these 2 longswords that he was dual wielding that were shattered in a great war before he was born, but then reforged by a master elven craftsman from the dawn of time. That's just the one ring. And Anduril from Lord of the Rings, really? No, it's better than Anduril. It's 2 of them. Okay, well, I'm gonna need time to go over this. What do you say we play a board game? Or like some Magic instead? Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I brought the perfect deck. Hello everyone, my full and legal name is MTG Ratgirl, and I'm here to show you how to be a true power gamer. You might be thinking to yourself, min-maxing an EDH deck? Isn't that just CEDH? And that is how I know that you tragically lack the spirit of a true gamer. You see, power gaming is not only about winning the game as efficiently as possible, neither is it about working together as a table to assess the correct threat, making sure that all of your friends have like a part in the decision-making process to find out whose deck is best suited to win in the current meta. Forget all of that. Power gaming is about role-playing a completely unrealistic fantasy version of yourself, which is so painfully revealing about specific insecurities in real life that it makes all of your friends a little bit uncomfortable the whole time, while still inspiring that little amount of pity that makes it so that they won't actually kick you from the table completely. I've run a lot of D&D sessions, can you tell? All right, now this is where our pal Nashi comes in. He's going to take full advantage of the commander format by not only creating synergy in our deck, but also becoming a hollow vessel that we can sort of project ourselves onto before we suit him up with a bunch of really badass equipment and enchantments. This way we can pretend to solve our real-life problems through the fantasy world that we're building, get way too invested, and then when we run into any hurdle at all, we will feel personally hurt and attacked, and then get upset for real. Okay, now we have to introduce the main character of your pod. Nashi, Moon's Legacy, is a 3/4 legendary rat shaman. With Menace and Ward 1, he has an ability which says, whenever Nashi, Moon's Legacy attacks, you can exile up to 1 target rat or legendary card from your graveyard and then copy it. You still have to pay the costs for the copy, but casting it this way ignores timing restrictions, so that can be pretty handy in a couple of cases that we'll go over. We are planning on using that second ability to reanimate some legendary equipment and enchantments to suit up Nashi, hopefully make him evasive, and slam for 21 commander damage as soon as you can. Also, go wide sometimes, just stick with me. The Architect link is right down there, so if you feel like following along, you can. The cards that originally inspired this deck were the backgrounds from the Baldur's Gate set. They are all legendary enchantments, and that means that Nashi can copy them from our graveyard, like let's say one gets removed, or if you mill it on accident, you don't have to draw it necessarily. Assembling background Voltron just sounded so fun and janky that I needed to make it happen as soon as I thought of it. The cards that will let Nashi more easily strike down any fools who dare stand in his way are Sword Coast Sailor, Raised by Giants, Agent of the Shadow Thieves, Master Chef, and Hardy Outlander. I also tried like a rat-heavy version of this deck so that I could include Cultist of the Absolute specifically, but it turns out that most of the creatures who are good at making rat tokens are not actually rats themselves, and they're not legendary either, so it just felt kind of clunky, and I liked this version better. The other set that did this deck a bunch of favors was the recent Assassin's Creed. It was obviously brimming with a ton of legends, and they had a whole cycle of legendary equipment. Mjolnir, the Stormhammer, lets our protagonist deal damage to everybody at once when we attack. Blackblade, of course, is a staple, but Excalibur, Sword of Eden, makes Nashi enormous so that you can swing in knowing that you're the biggest, coolest, specialist little rat in the world and that you're actually God's favorite. This god, specifically. You're her favorite because she helps you get in and smite people unblockably. My character totally completed a quest for her in the previous adventure, so yeah, it's in my backstory document. You can't take it away from me. No, like, it's like central to his character arc. Just be cool about it, okay? Also, she totally kissed him. Now is card advantage. Okay, another thing that obviously makes me love Nashi a lot more is his interaction with the graveyard. I'm a reanimator at heart, all right? I just can't help it, so get off my back about it. Jeez. Because Nashi's ability lets us copy things from our graveyard and ignore timing restrictions while we do it, we can use the graveyard as an extension of our hand. Plus, there are some cards that actually get better if we can cast them immediately during our attack step. Sidisi, Brood Tyrant, has always been an all-star in the self-mill strategies in these colors. We don't run a ton of creatures overall, but she will incidentally make more bodies than you'll need in a Voltron deck, so that's kind of a nice upside. The Ancient One from Lost Caverns of Ixalan also lets you discard some things that would be much better to get during combat, like Hammer of Nazan or Grazilax, for example. It then lets you mill even more to hopefully get something good for the following combat step. Since we are doing a lot of putting things into our own graveyards, you won't be struggling to turn this guy into a threatening 8/8 blocker as well. The rest of our mill spells are great for making sure that you hit those lands every turn. You don't want to be missing land drops in a self-mill deck. I've done it a lot. It's very painful. Whenever you get a chance, you will likely want to send the non-lands to your graveyard because our commander isn't quite so good at raising your mana base back from the dead. They're these spells over here. Look at those and memorize that they're actually ramp. You do have to talk about being a double orphan every time you cast Grapple with the Past, though. Nashi's parents died, and then his surrogate mom got completed as well. I honestly don't think that I could make an edgier PC background if I tried. Speaking of Nashi's adopted mother, we run Tamiyo, Collector of Tales, to effectively mill 4 as we tick her up, and we can get something important back to our hand with her tick down ability. This is a great politics play, actually, because you can cry openly anytime someone tries to swing into your dead roboticized mom. Trust me, bro, it works every time. This is the real deal, baby. Because we are the cool and edgy anti-hero of our commander pod, much of our card advantage actually also puts stuff into our graveyard, also known as the Trauma Closet, where it can tragically haunt us later as a copy. The background Scion of Hallister does it on our draw step, and Shoreline Looter from Bloomborough draws and then pitches something unless our graveyard is already pretty full. Plus, he's unblockable, so that means that you have another body that is a great candidate for slapping all of this good equipment onto. Treasure Cruise rewards you with drawing some cards if you have used these other spells to fill your graveyard enough. Hitting that Dredge 7 every time is actually harder than you might think because you are constantly exiling your own graveyard. So this one feels a little bit situational because you really want to be exiling non-legendary cards in exchange for those 3 on the top of your deck. But maybe I'm just a little too precious about my graveyard. It's the trash. It's there for a reason, right? Helm of the Host, which recently got a reprint in Bloomborough, also rewards you for filling your graveyard. Because if Nashi's ability is worth activating once during combat, then it's definitely worth activating 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 times also. Glarb, Calamity Augur, lets you surveil, which can get some key legendaries into your graveyard. He also lets you hit your land drops more easily, which is very chill of him. Rona, Herald of Invasion, will usually get 2 activations on your turn if you're attacking with Nashi. She is also a double-faced card, meaning that you don't actually get to see her backside if we cast her from the graveyard with Nashi's ability, but I still included her because often the front side, that little card draw ability and untapping is all that you need. She would be worth running even if it was just that. By the way, rest in peace to Jacob Hawken, Search for Escanta, and Elberus the Binding Blade. These were all really thematic and fun effects, but I actually had to cut them because they weren't worth including if I couldn't reliably flip them over. Thanks, copy effects. Ugh. Vraska joins up, and Sig, River, Cutthroat also both feel great because so many of our creatures are legends, which will draw off of the enchantment. And our commander has 3 base power, as we know, so even if Nashi just gives someone a little bit of a poke, Sig will still let us draw a card for the turn. And of course, no self-insert character would be complete without some kind of chosen one trope of being like the only person who could be the ring bearer from the Fellowship of the Ring. Other people just can't understand the kind of pain that you're in, man. So, in this case, Bilbo's Ring protects Nashi from being targeted in addition to being a card advantage piece when we need it. Glissa Sunslayer doubles as an enchantment or planeswalker removal, and she is also very hard to block. So she's kind of a legend in more ways than one. I can't see. All Will Be One just had the best edgelord aesthetics of all time. Glissa is an evil Phyrexian. Didn't you read my backstory? Nashi totally saved her, and she's like better now, and kind of his girlfriend or something. Or at least she would be if he could let himself be vulnerable enough. Single tier. Protection. Something else that everyone with main character energy really needs is a faithful animal companion who can, like, tragically die and be avenged by your own self-insert. To further this narrative, we have Anara Wolvid Familiar, who can make sure that Nashi can't be destroyed during your turn. Essior Wardwing Familiar also makes it harder to target him with removal. Because removal is unfair, dude. Don't kill my little guy, please. He's just a little guy. Emir of Nazan not only protects Nashi during combat, but also immediately snaps any weapons that you find directly onto him as they enter the battlefield. Nashi called dibs. I actually need that for my build, dude, so you can't take it from me. I found it first. Please? 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 It would be so good with my character. You're not even a freaking shaman. You're not even a warlock, dude. Come on. Mithril Coat also has flash to protect him at a moment's notice, and our dual-faced lands will both serve as cheap protection spells if you don't need the mana that you get from their backside. Ramp in your deck doesn't have to look responsible, okay? Why shouldn't you be allowed to look like a badass while you're generating mana? That's why, in addition to the regular mana rocks in our colors, we also have Bitterthorn, Nissa's Animus, Sword of the Animist, and also Kodama of the West Tree. If you don't feel like spending a ton of money on Kodama, you can also sub in Gretchen Twitch Willow or Lost Jite. They both kind of let you ramp as well. The equipment options do make Nashi bigger and cooler, though, which is the entire point of this deck. One thing that I actually ran into while playtesting this list was unthinkable for a 3-color deck. I had too few basics. Usually, I try to make sure that the majority of my mana base is color fixing lands, if I'm running a deck with 3 or more colors, especially. So I originally built this list with only 4 basics in total. However, because the only repeatable sources of real ramp grab basic lands from our library only, I would be failing to find on my 3rd attack or something if I happened to have an unlucky starting hand. So shout out to the basic believers, I guess, because I'm now running 3 of each land type in our list so that I can consistently get that payoff off of Kodama. Kamal's Druidic Vow kind of feels like it should be out of place here, but because the lands that it hits come in untapped and the rest of the deck is full of legendaries, it feels pretty great to cast even if you can't dump a ton of mana into it. Since so many of our creatures are legendary, you can easily convert blockers into mana with Relic of Legends. You don't want most things except Nashi swinging anyway, so this feels pretty helpful if you're behind on land drops. 6 from Modern Horizons 3 mills you and gets lands back into your hand whenever it attacks. And Zamon gives you an extra land drop each turn. Doc Orlok also isn't strictly ramp, but it is cost reduction for Nashi's ability, so you can dig up more epic loot for your little guy to wear. I know it's a Voltron deck, hear me out. Even though Nashi definitely works better alone, it sure does help to have a whole bunch of loyal followers to guard your stuff back at home while you're out being a Molgoth vigilante with a katana. Tormod the Desecrator and Amzu synergize with Nashi's ability by making tokens when you exile things from your graveyard. So you're getting to exile them and also cast them, which feels pretty broken with these effects. These will make sure that you have plenty of bodies to block even if Nashi is tapped down every turn. Wand of Orcus, Vren, and Feywild Visitor, and Cloakwood Hermit also make creature tokens after combat. The wand, stolen from the god of undeath himself, can also snowball into an army of zombies with Death Touch to finish out your enemies or cleanly wipe their board. Hardy Outlander makes one creature attacking with Nashi much bigger, especially if you've already suited him up with some other toys. Crown of Gondor and Anduril reward you for making a wider board, and other Anduril makes attacking tokens to synergize with them. I get two. I actually get two Andurils from Lord of the Rings because the DM said I could. So it's on my character sheet, buddy. Please, just come on. Don't worry about it. Unfortunately, not every spell in our deck can be a legendary piece of our arsenal. You gotta have some boring stuff in your 10-page backstory also, and removal is good in any deck. Isildur's Fateful Strike and Urtai Resurrected are our legendary removal pieces. Urtai obviously feels better if you can be used on the stack by casting him from your hand, but removing an opponent's creature before they can assign blockers also feels pretty good. Over the Edge has the potential for ramping or making Nashi bigger on top of getting rid of a problematic piece of someone else's board. Counterspells are always good, and both Aetherize and Golden Demise will help wipe out all of those cowardly weenie decks who are going wider than us with the power of friendship or some shit like that. It's like they're not even interested in testing the limits of their abilities. Our mana base in this list is pretty normal. Being in 3 colors, we definitely want a lot of fixing, but we do get some cool utility lands also. The Grey Havens and Great Hall of the Citadel are both great at fixing our mana since we have so many legends. Shifting Woodland goes into any graveyard deck, and it can copy things in our graveyard without us needing to exile them, which can be handy sometimes. Rivendell and Gaia Reach Sanitarium are both pretty good card advantage pieces in our land base. The Sanitarium does a much better job, obviously, since looting is kind of like drawing 2 for our deck, if you think about it. Rogue's Passage and Access Tunnel are also powerhouses in any kind of Voltron deck, and they'll let Nashi get in for free. Access Tunnel is definitely the worst one, but our commander's base power is 3, so in some situations, I'm sure it'll get those last few points of commander damage through on someone. I could definitely see myself cutting this one for like a cheap surveil land. Takasha's Dig Site comes to mind, or the new Lilypad Village. Maybe after I playtest it in person, I'll get around to that and give you an update. Playtesting this deck has been really fun so far. With Wizards printing so many legends recently, it was only a matter of time before legendary themed cards got buffed a lot on accident by developing synergies like this. I think that we can see that by legendary decks becoming playable even in formats like Standard, which don't rely on legendary creatures to work in the first place. An Esper Legends list actually won first place at Worlds last year, and so both Rona and Relic of Legends have become competitive staples in all kinds of formats. When I first saw Bloomburrow, I was very excited that more Dimir Rats existed, and I still am, but Kindred decks are just more predictable and easier to play around in general with the current meta. Since Wizards started designing more for the Commander format, there are just too many legends that Nashi can potentially take advantage of. The benefits vastly outweigh the cuteness of the tiny little rats, unfortunately. It breaks my heart, but it's true. On the bright side, though, you can still run Vren and Lord Skitter if you want to, and I also genuinely love any commander list that lets me play a character at the table. Doing this bit of like a hyper grindy RPG player is too funny for me to pass up. Because in the end, we are having fun with our friends at the table, hopefully. That's the point of this cool game that we like to play together. It seems like Nashi was meant to wander the land, a swordsman without a mentor, with only the ghosts of his mom Tamio to keep him company. And also the ghost of all those other legendary creatures that he met on his journeys in my 10-page backstory document. And also his swords to keep him company that have spirits in them, and his crown and his magic ring, but he's still really hurt and brooding, you know. No one can know the true extent of his pain, for he must protect others rather than himself. He fights for no one, though, except himself. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me while I make these videos. The more of you subscribe, the more time I can spend on them, and actually the better I get at editing. That's a little known fact about me. If you subscribe to my channel, I become a better editor. Check out my Etsy shop over here if you want some cool stickers and tokens, and let me know what you would change about this list in the comments or on my Tumblr. Thank you for subscribing and for watching until the end. Just for that, I'm gonna give you this magical amulet that I found on my journeys that will protect you from board wipes or counter spells. Okay, here you go. There you are. All right, looks great on you. Now go be a terror at your local Friday Night Magic. Safe travels, adventurer.